Session 135. Ralph noted John Brindley was a witness to the session. They said, "Good evening." John said, "Good evening," Seth. They said, "I will here welcome Philip to our session. Since he is acquainted with our later material, I will continue along the same lines. Much of the information that you have been receiving lately can be partially verified by physics and mathematicians. That is, verification is possible. This does not mean that it will necessarily come about. Your letter, by the way, to the publisher was an excellent move on your part. The book being prepared by Rupert is coming along well. Some more work is needed on pages 52, 70, and 90. If he will reread these sections, the necessary changes will occur to him. I will see to it. It is most pleasant this evening, with our small group. I am still working with Rupert in an attempt to make the sessions more congenial, although necessarily it takes a while for him to become accustomed to our new method of delivery. The Mr. Gauntlet of whom you have been speaking will soon find himself in other difficulties. I am afraid. We will now return to our other discussions. I have said that the electrical universe is, again, a materialization of a sort of inner vitality, of which everything is composed. This vitality has a reality independently of any and all such materializations, which brings us to a most interesting point. It is most difficult for you to contemplate the existence of that which is independent of its own materialization. This vitality fills all other forms, while it is itself, in your terms, formless. But our discussions concerning the electrical universe should have led you into intangibles. It should be easier now for you to understand this vitality, since we have already spoken in terms of reality existing by means of intensities. You will recall that I spoke of distances in terms of action, and that these distances occurred not in a perceivable framework of the sort with which you are familiar, but that I spoke of distance that had its reality in terms of the varying intensities within any given electrical actuality. Therefore, traveling through such distance would involve travel through the electrical intensities that go into the existence of any given action as it electrically occurs. This idea of action within action, of distance and movement within action, is a fairly new one in our sessions. No electrical reality is composed of simply one impulse, although we must speak in these terms for simplicity's sake. Every electrical impulse is of itself composed of a truly endless variety and range of intensities. In other words, each electrical impulse contains within it its own infinity of variations. It is difficult here to do more than simply give you the statement. If you will, at your leisure, consider the make-up of your own dreams. You may partially and intuitively understand what I mean, for the distance in dreams is endless, though you may go but a little way. Yet, this distance, as we have said, does not take up space. This comes close to invoking an understanding of distance as it occurs electrically, existing within an action. I suggest your break. I do not, and I have said this before, want any of you to break up into pieces, for I am not sure that I could put you back together again. The intensities merge one into the other. Even the words which are used to describe them are at best poor symbols. For when I speak of an action, it would seem as if I spoke of one indivisible, concrete, completed issue, and such is not the case. No action basically is ever completed. This statement will later lead us into further range. All possibilities are open to an action, an electrical action, and again, within it are an infinity of variations and depths of intensities, which give it a reality in many dimensions simultaneously. Where strong intensities are felt, then the actuality will be said to project within the field of reality, which falls within the range of that particular intensity group. Such electrical realities then, through the strength of their intensities and their particular range, are projected into some fields, but not projected into others. Any so-called travel through time involves then a traveling through such intensities. This is obviously impossible for the physical camouflaged self, but it is not impossible for the inner self, which, as you know, has its own electrical reality, which is again composed of particular impulses and intensities. All that, all dimension and all distance is therein contained within the electrical universe. There is here, as I have said, no such thing as size in newtons or shape in newtons, but there is, again, distance, which is not absolute but varying, and which can be said to exist both backward and forward indefinitely within the indefinite intensities. And all reality within any given field basically occurs within such intensities. Once more, your own inner psychological experiences and the inner life of every individual can lead you to some understanding along these lines. Nor, as I said earlier, should this seem so strange. Mankind names and identifies even what he cannot see, and he divides and he separates. As I mentioned, when you look into a mirror, you do not see your ego. You can never see it. You experience it directly, and so do you experience directly this sort of distance of which I speak. But as you cannot find life by dissecting a frog, you cannot find this sort of distance by exploring space. When you dissect the frog, you destroy that which you had been seeking. You are left with camouflage. Only by direct experience will anyone know of these matters. Again, by looking where nothing seems to be, you will find much. And by exploring that which you cannot touch, you will discover that which is ever closer to you than touch. For the outer sense of touch is one of the most close counterparts of direct experience that you have, and it contains dimensions and gradations and varieties that cannot be recorded by scientific instruments, and this comes near in its own way to the infinite varieties present within one electrical action. I would also suggest, Joseph, that with all due respect, that within your crowded schedule you find time now and then for your psychological time experiments. As many teachers say, practice makes perfect, and lately in this respect, you do not exactly deserve a gold star, nor does Rupert. He either goes overboard and overdoes, or does nothing in that respect. And I believe in other respects. The half-hour limit should always be maintained. However, you should be able to experience now directly the sort of distance to which I have referred. I will now suggest you break. I find the conversation most amusing, and I myself will have a hand with any critics. And if I do not seem spiritual enough for anyone who reads the material, then let it be said that I have never pretended to be the Holy Ghost. Such a remark is also based upon your definition of spirituality, which is at best limited in your contemporary society, and whose limited definition is indeed the result of duality which has besieged mankind now for centuries. What I have been telling you this evening, and my discussions in all our sessions, all my comments have been concerned with basic and simple facts, not alien to mankind's nature, but more intimate to him than touch. The very fact that over 130 sessions have been devoted to such ABCs is, in itself, adequate proof of how mankind has indeed devoted itself from the nature of its own spirit. I am always amused and somewhat agitated at talk of so-called spirituality, when barriers have been effectively set up, cutting the nature of man into halves. And I will effectively deal with any such criticism. You will not have to open your mouth. Indeed, I would prefer, under such circumstances, that you would not speak out. Most of our material will indeed be shown as valid. I do not speak in any of these matters as far as definite times and places are concerned, nor do I intend to. Robert is egotistical enough as it is, and you, Joseph, are so determined. We will continue on. The material will see wide circulation, and at a time when you are both able to handle such circumstances, I show to you those facets of my personality with which you can attune yourselves most readily. I am indeed here, and with you more than you realize. For you see, your experience of me now exists in electrically coded data within your own systems. I am myself. I still exist, however, in electrically coded data within or about yourself. As I have explained that all individual experience is so electrically coded and retained. I thought that you would understand this automatically, but apparently you did not. I am pleased with Philip's interest on our behalf, and I do indeed keep my eye out, so to speak, on his behalf. There are many reasons why such a rapport was first established and then continued, and there will be in the future an event that will bind the three of you together. I here mention once more that you keep some watch upon Miss Callahan, and would indeed suggest that Rupert, for a period of 3 or 4 days, brings up the mail to Miss Callahan. This will prevent Miss Callahan from attempting the stairs, at least for this purpose, and it is during the afternoon periods that concern is felt here. During our next session, we will go more deeply into those pyramid gestures of which we have spoken in the past, and perhaps consider from another viewpoint entirely the scope and the nature that make up the idea of gods. Within certain frameworks, these pyramid gestures do have an electrical reality, but their existence goes beyond not the range but the nature of electrical reality, and because of the strength of their intensity, they are projected within every other field of actuality that exists. I will now close our session. When the three of us are together upon some other occasion, then perhaps we shall see about your effects. Show me, show me, show me, Rupert. And here you see this. Because Mark has been that Mark has seen. Our Rupert is dubious. Why? Because Mark has seen that Mark has seen. Mark's abilities, while untrained, are excellent. He is naive and childlike. For this reason, his abilities allow him to see what has been put before him. I would say more along these lines. However, Rupert would not take it kindly. And I am after all in his debt to some degree. My heartiest wishes to all of you. If you prefer, I will consider prolonging the session. However, we shall end it as usual if you prefer. Ralph said, I guess we had better. Say said, then by all means do so. I will give you one little puzzle, Joseph. The number 5, a Saturday evening, and that is all I will say. Ralph said good night, Seth.